The day the wind died. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But what we're about to get into is a thought experiment that uncovers this just incredibly fragile truth about our planet. We're going to talk about what would actually happen if the wind just died.
So what would happen if the wind just stopped? It sounds like a simple question, maybe one a kid would ask. But the answer? It's genuinely one of the most terrifying thought experiments you can imagine. What if the air, the very air we're all breathing right now, suddenly became completely and unnaturally still?
Okay, so picture this. You wake up one morning in Phoenix, or maybe you're stuck in that classic traffic on the 405 in LA, and something just feels off. It's not a noise, it's the opposite. It's a silence that's so deep, so absolute, that it's just unsettling.
And you'd start noticing these really small, eerie details, the things that tell you something is profoundly wrong. Flags, they're not fluttering, they're just hanging there, like wet rags. Someone's cigarette smoke, it's not drifting away, it's rising in a perfectly straight column. You can smell the hot dog stand from a block away, and the smell just hangs there, frozen in the air. It's this absolute atmospheric silence, something that has literally never happened in the entire history of the Earth.
And this is the key thing to get. This isn't just a calm day. It's not a brief lull between breezes. No, the wind, that invisible engine that keeps our entire world running, it's just gone, completely and utterly vanished.
All right, so the first domino falls. What happens when that engine just cuts out? Well, the systems we've built, the ones we depend on literally every single second of every day, they start to break, and they break down immediately.
Let's start with a number, just one number, 10%. That's how much of the US's electricity comes from wind power. Now, you might be thinking, 10%, that's not a huge amount. But when it vanishes in an instant, oh boy, you suddenly see just how fragile our whole interconnected system really is.
So, in a flash, thousands of those giant wind turbines all across the country just freeze. They stop dead. The power supply plummets, the grid goes haywire, and for millions and millions of people sweating it out in the summer heat, the AC just clicks off. Silence. Welcome to the American nightmare, right?
And the paralysis just spreads like a virus through our whole system. I mean, think about it. Our economy only works because stuff moves. But now, at the seaports, these massive cargo ships are just stuck, bobbing in sluggish water. The ports become giant parking lots. And aviation? Forget it. Flights are grounded everywhere because you can't safely take off or land without wind. It's gridlock. But believe it or not, that's not even the worst part. The most sinister immediate problem is brewing in our cities. You know how the wind normally just whisks all the gunk away? Well, without it, every single puff of exhaust from every car, every bit of smoke from every factory, it just sits there. It has nowhere to go. It sinks down to street level, and pretty soon you've got millions of people trapped inside a giant, slow-motion gas chamber.
And the human cost it's immediate and it's devastating. We're talking within just 48 hours, hospitals are overwhelmed with people who can't breathe. Just look at this. Asthma attacks quadrupled. Our cities, the places we live and work, have literally become unbreathable.
But okay, as truly awful as all that sounds on land, the real existential threat, the big one, is starting in our oceans. The planet itself is actually beginning to suffocate.
So to get why, you gotta understand this one key idea, stratification. See, wind makes waves, right? And those waves are constantly churning up the ocean. They mix the warm water on top with the cold, oxygen-rich water from way down deep. It's basically how the ocean breathes. But without wind, that mixing just stops. Cold.
And that kicks off this absolutely terrifying chain reaction. So follow me here. No wind means no waves. Then the ocean separates into these distinct layers. The oxygen at the surface gets all used up, but there's nothing coming from the deep to replace it. And suddenly, these huge dead zones, they're like massive underwater deserts, start expanding all over the planet.
So why is this a global catastrophe? I mean, who cares about ocean layers, right? Well, this is why it matters. 50%. Half of the oxygen you are breathing in right now, this very second, comes from the ocean. So when the ocean stops breathing, yeah, so do we.
And the signs of this collapse would be everywhere. You wouldn't be able to miss them. You'd see huge masses of fish washing up on the shores. You'd see coral reefs just bleaching out and dying. We would literally be watching in real time as the planet's single largest life support system just dies.
Okay, so this brings us to the final and most important point.
We've seen our power grid go down, our economy grind to a halt, our oceans start suffocating, so let's put all the pieces together and really understand what the wind is. It's life's invisible engine.
This really says it all, doesn't it? A tale of two planets. With wind, our Earth just works. It moves heat from the hot equator out to the poles, which gives us a climate we can actually live in. It carries moisture around that becomes the rain for our forests and our food. But without wind, the tropics would just bake into these unbearable ovens, the poles would freeze solid, and our planet would become uninhabitable, fast.
And it's not just the big stuff. Even the basic physics of daily life would get super weird. It's almost darkly comical. Mosquitoes would just hover in place, like little biological drones. A baseball pitcher could throw a perfect curveball, and it would fly in a perfectly straight line. And that smoker we mentioned? Their puff of smoke would just follow them down the street like their own personal cartoon cloud. The world as we know it would just stop making sense.
And here's where it gets really personal. You know how a little breeze feels so good on a hot day? That's not just a feeling. That's wind helping your body cool itself through evaporation. Without any air circulation at all, that process fails. Heat just builds up, in your house, in your car, and right there on your own skin. It would feel like you're trapped inside a giant, warm, sweaty glass jar.
So, the big takeaway here is this. We tend to think of wind as just weather, a nice breeze, a bad storm. But it is so much more than that. It is the absolute lifeblood of the planet. It's that invisible engine we've been talking about, the one that stirs the oceans, cools the land, and ultimately is responsible for the very air in our lungs.
So a world without wind, it isn't peaceful and calm, it's a slow, suffocating global gridlock. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. Wind is just one of these incredible invisible engines that we totally depend on and take for granted. So what others are out there? What other critical systems are humming along in the background? Systems that we've forgotten we literally cannot live without?